I found a secret football manager tactic that not a lot of people are talking about. This tactic beat PSG to win the French League One playing OG Nice in their first season, and it also managed to win the Serie A with Bologna in the same year. If that wasn't enough, it finished third with Las Palmas in La Liga behind Real Madrid and Barcelona. So how do we get our hands on this tactic? You see, there's just one problem. The tactic creator is a French guru named Alex, and he gave a complete breakdown of the tactical philosophy in French. So I decided to comb through the video for hours and also change my football manager in-game language to French so I could accurately recreate the system. I know what you're thinking. Why not just download the tactic from the description down below? Well, bonjour, it's not that simple. The tactic creator didn't attach a link in the description, and I also don't have the rights to share the download file, so I recommend that you watch this video carefully to the end if you would like to recreate the same results that OG Nice, Bologna and Las Palmas achieved in their first season on Football Manager 2024. Now before we get into it, there are a few things I need to mention. The first is, if you enjoy Football Manager tactic videos like this, subscribe to the channel so you can get more content like this. And second, this is not a plug and play tactic. I doubt those exist anymore the way Football Manager has evolved, but Alex's breakdown of how the system works shows us how you're able to actually take Las Palmas, Nice and Bologna, a team that you normally wouldn't win the league with in the first season, and then go ahead to actually achieve that. Now what really gave Alex good results goes beyond the tactics, so I'll share with you a tiny secret that he shared in his video, which I totally agree with by the way, that will take you to the next level on Football Manager. Now the system embodies a lot of instructions from overpowered tactics that tend to work on Football Manager, and in case you're on the console of Football Manager Touch, I'm going to go over the tactic in detail. I'm going to show you all the player instructions and team instructions so you can go ahead and recreate the tactic for yourself. Remember, I don't really have the license to actually share the download file, so there's no going to be a download file for this tactic. Just have to follow along with the video and try to get it the way the tactic comes out. So the first thing that Alex really goes on to talk about in this system is the way his goalkeeper is set up. The goalkeeper could actually operate as a sweeper keeper on attack or on support or on defend depending on the situation of the game, but I sort of prefer the support duty, but for now I'm going to just select it to be sweeper keeper on defend duty. There are no instructions for him, but in central defense you have two ball playing defenders playing on defend duty. Now their instructions are quite unique because you could actually ask the ball playing defender to be the kind of player that dribbles and gets forward a lot, but that sort of adds an extra level of risk to the way your game is going to play. So Alex actually advised that for some teams you can actually take off the dribble less instruction, but you also need to have to shoot less often and tackle harder instruction for your ball playing defenders. A nice balance for me would be to have one of the central defenders have dribble more while the other does not, just to see how they actually balance each other out. But for now, since we're recreating his system, that's the way it's going to be. Now when translating the tactic, I had issues with the fullbacks. They're technically wing backs on attack duty, but the way the wingback is set up, part of the internal player instructions, I did think that for a while I used the sit narrower instruction and it did work well for a while, but until I realized that I actually made a mistake. It should have been stay wider instruction instead of sit narrower. But either way, I noticed I did give us slightly similar result. I think the stay wider instruction was slightly better when I went about using it. You're also going to ask your wingbacks to actually tackle harder and also take more risks because they're going to be the ones to actually act as playmakers from wide areas. They will get high up the pitch. We're going to talk about that much later in team instructions. So I recommend having good wing backs, players that can actually have high stamina that can get up and down the pitch. Whether you want them to sit narrower or stay wider is directly up to you. Just remember to ask them to take more risks. Now in defensive midfield, you have a defensive midfielder this time playing on support duty. There are no instructions for him, but beside him you have ahead of him you have a central midfielder on support duty. He's going to act like a playmaker in this time, so he's the one that's going to take more risks and also move into channel to try and offer some support up front and try to act like a central midfielder on attack. But even though he's still playing on support duty, remember to also tell him to tackle harder because that's sort of crucial with the way this tactic works. You sort of have to be aggressive. Now Alex did emphasize that because in Football Manager 2024 the match engine sort of favors a certain style of play, so if you're sort of too passive you may not really get as many wins as you ought to, especially if you have a slightly good team. You do want to be oppressive, you do want to be very aggressive and get at the opposition and try to force them off the ball. On the left hand side, the left-sided central midfielder is going to be Ameka playing on attack duty. The only instruction for the Metala, and this one I absolutely agree with this, this. If you do not ask the Mezzala to tackle harder, he probably isn't going to mark anyone, especially if he's on attack duty. He's going to literally not care about his defensive responsibilities. So having the Mezzala play on attack, you can have him also get stuck in or tackle harder, try to be more aggressive and try to defend. Now ahead of the central midfielders, you have inside forwards playing on attack duty, and they also, I think, as much as they're going to be in wide areas, they're going to try to be a bit narrow. You're going to see the instruction here that actually tells them to sit narrower and also tackle harder, try to emphasize that defensive side of their game to try and force them to win possession back and try to hassle the opposition's fullback into losing possession or making mistakes. Asking them to sit narrower actually encourages the fullback to get ahead, but we're going to look at that in the team instructions. Now the final piece is the advanced forward, and he is only going to take more risk and also tackle harder. So now that we've gone through the player instructions, let's have a careful look at the team instructions. This time we're going to start with what really makes this tactic overpowered. What Alex emphasizes that we do here is to play with a very high tempo. Tempo is powerful in Football Manager, and if you're playing with a slow tempo, if you're a bit too passive, the AI can sort of jump on your team very quickly. I do enjoy playing with low tempo, to be honest. I prefer the possession-based style of play. I love watching that, but I noticed that in Football Manager, you have to be a bit aggressive in order to get things done in this game. Also, you're going to play with a slightly shorter passing. I noticed that the overpowered instruction may be slightly higher tempo, but Alex went all the way with higher tempo, and he worked for the three teams that we saw him manage. This is going to encourage the team to pass their way out, but their play out of defense instruction isn't actually selected. The only other instruction for the approach play that we've seen here is the look for the overlaps. That's to force the wing backs to actually take advantage of that space ahead of them left by the inside forwards that are cutting inside. Now the team is also going to run our defense, and while they are playing low crosses, he didn't actually call this low crosses, he called it safe crosses, because this is going to encourage the team to actually get into the byline and try to play a cross that they're sure is getting to somebody's feet in the center of the box. They're not going to float anything, or the wing backs are not going to stay deep and try to play high crosses into the box. Now in transition, the goalkeeper is going to distribute it quickly, but he's going to do that by rolling the ball out. He's not going to spend a lot of time on the ball, but he's not going to take that much risk when he's trying to get it out to the other side. It's usually going to be the centre backs or the full backs that are going to get the ball. I don't think the defensive midfielder really drops that deep. I didn't really notice that happen. They're also going to counter a lot, and they're going to counter press. The counter is going to happen when they win possession high up the pitch, which leads us over to our out of possession instruction. The team will play with a very high press. We can't really push it higher than this, but it's going to be a high press. They're also going to play with a much more often trigger press on the defensive line. Is going to be really high. What Alex also explains, and what I've also noticed in the game, is depending on the team that you're using, you don't really get balls over the top that much in FM24 for some reason. So you pressing higher up the pitch means that you have a lot more numbers in the opposition's defense to try and win the ball back, and you can also pin the opposition into their own defensive third and then try to create chances from there. To encourage that pressing, the prevent shot goalkeeper distribution is also selected, and the team is also going to step up a lot more. Now the get stuck in instruction was something he said is slightly different from the tackle harder instruction, but it sort of works hand in hand. Get stuck in instructs your players to aggressively or to be aggressive and strong in the tackle. This may increase the risk of fouls and disciplinary action. In a way, it encourages the team to do a bit more to try and get the ball back regardless of what is going to happen. Similar to tackle harder. Tackle harder means the player could actually dive into the tackle and try to get the ball, but the normal tackling is going to mean that the player is going to decide whether he's going to slide or do a standing tackle, while the ease of tackle is going to mean that the player is usually going to make a standing tackle when he's trying to win the ball, and it's all usually going to calculate how often he's going to try to win that ball back. Let's look at the instruction here. The tackle harder ease of tackle says that the player is going to consider the ramifications of the aggressive tackle and not go ahead to make it unless it is absolutely certain that he's going to win the ball. So it's usually going to be a standing tackle. Now the last piece of instruction we're going to attach to this tactic is the team's mentality. It is currently set to positive, and another thing you need to note is that Alex mentioned that set pieces are quite important in this game. He went on to score 28 goals from corners for, I think, with the Las Palmas team, but he didn't share the set pieces, and I don't know what the set pieces look like. So you need to trust the process that the set pieces are going to work out. You have a good set piece taker, set him on corners, and then just let it run. But I told you earlier that there's going to be a secret you need to know to actually get this tactic to work. You cannot really throw it in and simulate most of the season and expect that the tactic is going to work. The player's condition is crucial, so you need to have a squad depth and also the player morale and squad atmosphere. So you need to check your dynamics very often, make sure that you have good squad atmosphere, good team cohesion. Start the tactic from pre-season, so not just mid-season plug and play. It doesn't really work like that. You need to start the tactic from pre-season, make sure that everybody has the tactical familiarity, everybody understands their roles, and everybody is happy in the squad. squad morale is very crucial as to why this tactic worked for Alex at Las Palmas, Bologna, and OG Nice, because they normally wouldn't have had that results if the team were having a sort of up and down season with their emotions and squad dynamics and everything. So you try to keep everybody happy in your squad and get off all those players that are having issues and causing unrest in the dressing room, get them all out, and hopefully you're going to get as good results as Alex got with this same tactic. I'm actually going to go ahead and use it for a season and continue the season that I've been having. If you did enjoy this video, remember to leave a like on it and also subscribe to the channel for more Football Manager tactic videos like this. I'll see you next time. Enjoy your Football Manager.